it's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Saturday, September 17th. So the moon is in Gemini again all day. We are building towards our last quarter moon in Gemini at 24 degrees later on this afternoon. To have the sun in Virgo, the moon in Gemini, both ruled over by Mercury, who is currently retrograde, we can expect a lot of mental and emotional processing. We have to figure things out. We have to weigh the pros and cons. We have to do the internal debate between our heart and our head in order to get on the same page so that we can actively prepare to take action in our physical realms to mirror what it is that we've decided upon in our internal realm. So, the moon in Gemini, again, very curious, very mentally stimulating. We're looking outside of ourselves for cues, for information, for validation, for direction. We want to stay busy. We want to keep the vibe high. We like to kind of be a little bit more playful and definitely look for social interactions. There are 11 different aspects here today. 8 of them involve the moon in Gemini, and we have the moon going void, of course, at 5:52 p.m., but we'll not be locking in to that Cancer energy until early morning, Saturday morning. Now, the last aspect that we have with the moon in Gemini before going void, of course, is this last quarter moon in Gemini. That, of course, is a crisis point in consciousness. We'll talk about that in just a second. We have the moon bumping into Jupiter in a very positive way. This is mentally stimulating once again, but showing us where it is that we want more out of life, more experiences, more love, more money, more opportunities to test ourselves and to step into a powerful situation where we trust ourselves in the greater, grander plan. Of course, our mental plane and our heart space are working overtime to really process and review all that has taken place, especially back to the spring of this year, where we made some sudden changes, where we tried to put the past behind us, where we jumped into brand new chapters. But of course, Jupiter, now retrograde, we're having to reflect, revise, and re-edit some of the plans in which we had intentionally set out for ourselves that maybe now, with different elements, different information and details coming to light, maybe doesn't make that much sense. Now, let me just say this. We are feeling confident. We are feeling big. We are feeling positive. We are feeling enthusiastic about some of the ideas that are percolating in our mental plane and some of the options and opportunities that we currently have on our plate to decide from. Venus, the goddess of love and beauty and worth and pleasure and money, bumps into Chiron, the wounded healer, in such a way that would kind of suggest that something's going to happen in our external realm that we don't have control over, that is likely coming from a personal relationship, showing us where it is that the wounds are still alive and well, where doubts and fears, insecurities, maybe even jealousy, maybe even the fear around losing something, someone, is coming at us hot. Why? Because Chiron, the wounded healer, needs to expose to us what is broken in order for the Virgo energy that Venus is currently sitting in to fix it, to solve it. We have to really show ourselves where it is that we are uncomfortable, where it is that we aren't feeling good about certain circumstances, especially in some personal relationships, in order for us to sit in that funk and actually decide what would be a better situation, a better scenario for us to be living in. Of course, we had this Venus and Mars square, this boxing ring, this inner conflict here yesterday that was supposed to highlight for us the tension that we're feeling in our lives, the discontentment, the dissatisfaction, especially with some personal relationships, in order to show us where new passions, new desires, new urges for new experiences are kind of being suppressed. Of course, when you sit in the funk and you acknowledge what it is that you don't want to experience, we figure out what it is that we do want to experience, and then we can chase that mission, chase that purpose. Mars goes ahead and bumps into the true node in such a way that would suggest that we are actively sorting through the choices, the decisions, the paths, the directions that we currently have to choose from. Mars, of course, being the ruler over our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our desire, is on the intellectual battlefield in Gemini energy. The true node is our soul's path, our destiny's point in order for us to reach our mission, our purpose, our soul's fullest potential. And as we've been trying to figure out what direction and path we've been trying to take, it has been a little bit of a back and forth debate, a pro and con argument. And this particular situation, especially feeding off of Venus bumping into Chiron, opening up those wounds, would suggest that we are aligning with one path over the other, one choice, one decision over the other, which means that we're gaining a little bit of clarity on what the next step forward may just be. The moon is going to bump into Uranus being the great awakener, shaking things up, showing us, because he's in a retrograde in Taurus, where it is that we're overly attached to people, to places, to ideas, to possessions, and what it is that we're actually carrying fear about when it comes to moving on. Many of us praying for different circumstances, praying for a different reality, but doing absolutely zero in order to detach from the elements that we know we've outgrown in order to create the space to have an energy, a void for the new elements to be born into. Again, many people think that they'll just hold on to what it is that they've been holding on to until the new arrives, in which case they will get rid of the old. That's not how manifestation works. You have to actively get rid of the old elements, the old topics and themes, relationships, identities, create a space trusting that the universe will fill that space with the new elements that are more in alignment for your mission and for your purpose. The moon bumping into Uranus in this way is likely going to bring a shock to the system, definitely a jolt to the central nervous system, creating anxiety, creating restlessness, anticipation, maybe even excitement. I hesitate to say the positive emotions because this particular shake-up is supposed to really show us where it is that confusion is getting the best of us. May I remind you, confusion needs to happen in order for clarity to come. A mental and emotional breakdown is needed before a breakthrough can come. This is an element where we are very confused, especially in our heart and head, trying to make sense of all the things that just took place, trying to understand where it is that we're supposed to go from here. A little bit of emotional, I'm going to say, and mental confusion at this time can definitely make us feel a little bit distant, detached from our personal relationships, from our reality altogether. We need this little bit of time out in order to realign with our higher self, see the active topics and themes, the storylines that are at play, and see where it is that we are being drawn away from certain elements and drawn closer to new topics, new themes, new storylines, new contracts. The moon is going to trine Saturn. This is going to give us a little bit of clarity. This is going to help bring us back down to earth, see things from the perspective of what it is that they actually are instead of the way that we wish that they would be. This particular energy is a little bit of a weight, I will say, just because we get a little bit of a reality check. That's what Mr. Saturn does. He shows us where we have roles and responsibilities, where we have commitments, not only to other people, but to ourselves to fulfill certain karmic contracts that, of course, our higher self has divinely scripted for us. Because this is a trine, it does mean that we are working together. Again, Gemini energy and air energy. Aquarius energy is an air energy. So we are starting to see the greater, grander path, the vision, the goal, the dream that we should be actively working towards in our present day. The moon bumps into Pluto in a very positive way, Mr. Transformation himself, that would suggest that these aha moments that we're having, this mental and emotional processing that we're doing is actually sorting things out. We are gaining a little bit of perspective, a little bit of understanding. We are gaining a tad bit of clarity, and there's an aha moment, an epiphany, if you will, happening in our inner realm. Pluto, being the great transformer, does its best work on our psyche first and foremost, which of course impacts the way that we feel about past events. There's an element here where we are examining our pain, our trauma, understanding from a karmic perspective that these particular storylines and contracts were divinely scripted for us from and by our higher selves to push us into our own power, to push us into our greatest potential. There's a light bulb going off. Something is happening in our inner realm. And because the intensity is building to this last quarter moon in Gemini, we're definitely feeling like we are pulling back the layers of understanding, of perception, of perspective on some of the situations that have gone down in ways that we haven't been able to make sense of just yet. The moon in Gemini goes ahead and gets into the boxing ring, squares Neptune, who is retrograde in Pisces in its place of power. This is a battle royale versus our egoic intellect, where logic and practicality reign, versus our higher self, our intuition, where all things are possible, even if it doesn't make sense. We are struggling to find balance between the two. We are struggling to take all the emotions, all the energies that we're currently picking up on, which most of the time don't even belong to us. It's definitely coming in from the collective. And we're trying to make sense of it, which of course is a lost cause, because some things are meant to be felt, not understood. And some things are just not able to make sense to our rational, logical, mental plane. This is where the conflict, this is where the tension starts building. And then just hours after this particular aspect at 5:52 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the moon in Gemini squaring, getting into the boxing ring with the sun in Virgo energy. This is where we have an aha moment, an epiphany, where we realize what it is that we've been processing in our mental plane and in our heart space is finally starting to make a little bit of sense. We're starting to figure out what works for us, what doesn't work for us, what path we are being kind of called away from, and what path we are being called to. This is all in preparation for the new moon in Libra that will be taking place on the 25th. This is a peak point of energy, especially looking back to the full moon in Pisces that we just had and all that has transpired since then. Of course, that full moon in Pisces definitely illuminated a lot of emotions, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of release. We've been going through a cleansing period in this final chapter of this season and cycle as we prepare to get closer and closer to the equinox energy that will reset the scales and give us an even playing field for the next cycle to begin. The moon is now void of course. Things get shaky, things get questionable, things become uncertain. It is never a good idea to make any kinds of decisions or align with any kind of commitment, start any new projects, but the urge to do so will definitely be there. That is the energy, just needing a direction and needing a focus as it jumps around and jumbles around inside of us. The moon, while void, bumps into Pluto once again in an aspect that would suggest that we are being presented with a choice point, with an opportunity to take maybe one tad little baby step forward in the direction in which we feel most aligned with. Now, this could bring up a lot of insecurities, a lot of doubts, a lot of the shadow elements that, of course, get triggered while the moon is void. And of course, when Mr. Pluto, the god of the underworld, is involved. But what we know from this is that this is a choice point, a change in direction on what it is that we need to do now that we've had certain revelations, that we've been called in certain directions, what that transformation, what that change may actually mean. The moon goes ahead and bumps into Chiron in the most positive way. This is really suggesting that we are doing a lot of inner work, that we are having a lot of revelations and epiphanies. And with this, we are healing certain mental perspectives and understandings. And with that, changing our emotions accordingly. This is about the wounds that we are actively trying to heal, the changes that we are actively trying to make, the transformation solutions that we are actively trying to pursue in order to align us with a sense of completion, a sense of health and wellness, and a sense of wholeness. Again, very much Virgo season topics and themes. We're nearing out the end of Virgo season, which means that we will see a lot of completion points, a lot of solutions emerge, especially to some topics and themes that we've identified that are technically broken within us, creating a little bit of pain and trauma, keeping us in a state of paralysis. These are all things that we have been highlighted and illuminated to through Virgo season, but we are coming to a full circle completion point with this energy, and with that, wounds get healed. The last aspect that we have here today is Mars sextiling, which is a beautiful vibe with Chiron, the wounded healer. This is motivating us. This is inspiring us. This is triggering a huge, powerful healing within us. This is us kind of bossing up, tapping into that warrior energy, making us a little bit less fearful of the changes, of the transformations that are currently taking place in our lives. This is going to really trigger our enthusiasm to, I'm going to say, passionately pursue a new path, a new direction, to align with the path and direction that we feel inspired to take action on. Because again, with Chiron involved, we are seeing solutions to our problems. We are seeing where it is that we have the ability to heal, to fix said problems and wounds. And we, at this particular point with Mars's warrior energy, is ready to boss up, to position ourselves moving forward instead of constantly looking back and letting past situations and scenarios, past pain, trauma, and suffering to keep us in a state of paralysis. We are actively being inspired to move forward with a new mission, a new purpose, a new goal, a new dream, and a new vision.